Okay.
Well, ooh, look, my eyes look all weird. Creepy. So what are you drinking this evening while we are reading our ghost stories? Hey, Caitlin.
I don't remember. It's a brand new one. It's the chai latte milk
Beer?
stout.
Holy cow.
Yes.
That's got a lot of stuff in
I need to get it.
Don't
I don't
take
even
it from
know.
me.
It's the very first time I went to
Mine is called, can you read mine too?
Really? You
Is
were
it-
just
it's-
harassing me and you don't know what you're
The
doing.
original by the Bell's Brewery. The original IPA? Is it something like that?
Official.
Oh, the official. I knew it started with an O.
Here. In case
Who
you
else
need
do
that.
we have here? We got Chris and Billy. Merry Christmas Eve. So this is when I'm drinking the official. It was part of
It's
the
backwards.
Jingle Bells collection. Well, I can't help that YouTube wants to put it on there backwards. It's a hazy India Pale Ale. So a hazy IPA.
And I had it all right. It's just a chai milk stout by Nitro. Left hand is the brewery.
Ooh, that's a pretty key. It's
Oh,
got a
it's
cow on it if you could
pretty.
see it.
So pretty.
The picture's
I was
so
really-
much better over on Facebook than it is on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know what to do about that. Well, we could actually turn our lights on.
Well, it takes away. Okay,
We're going
try
for the ambiance.
try turning the light on really quick, but don't knock the phone.
Do they want to see the mansion
No.
hanging?
No.
Okay.
I guess that's better. All right.
Right.
Okay.
Let me get rid of this. Those tres. They're gonna knock
if I
that
put
over.
the can on the ground, the dogs are gonna lick it.
Alright.
All right. So this is our annual tradition of sharing the Victorian tradition of sharing ghost stories on Christmas Eve. Generally, we do this outside, but it is really windy out there, and I thought that it would give us just a whole bunch of wind noises.
It's a tad blustery.
And it was supposed to be pretty chilly, which it's supposed to get down to the 30s, guys, which
Hard
is
eye
chilly,
roll.
right?
Hard eye roll.
Even for Florida. So we brought it inside. You can see our pretty little tree behind us. We've got our stockings hung by our non-chimney with care in hopes that St. Nick's going to fill them.
Two are stuffed.
Well, a lot of the gifts that St. Nick has for your stocking are rather heavy, so I thought maybe the hooks on the wall would not be enough. So maybe not do that.
They're nails.
Lisa has joined us. We've got Denise in here. Who else has joined us that I may not have seen? Teresa. This is wonderful. We're so glad. Thank you for joining us. This is, let's see, we started in 2014, so would this be year number 6 or 7? Is this the 7th time we did it? Because we did it in 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. This is our 7th year of doing this. Usually what we do, and that's what we're doing this year, is I have a stack of stories from our flash fiction contest that we did for the anniversary show. We had 3 winners and 3 runner-ups. But we had this whole stack of people that wrote wonderful stories that we didn't share with you. So we always save those for Christmas Eve. And then if we still have time, because this is going to run for about 2 hours, I have a book with some other scary ghost stories to share. Yes. Okay. So do you want me to read the first one or you want to read the first one? We do have Barnaby with us. Mort is somewhere, probably out in the cemetery, digging people up and burying them again. Hey, Monica. How come? Okay, so Chris is saying that we're having a colder Christmas than they are. Why has that been the case? I mean, you guys are always warmer than we are. It's like, here's what you do.
They're normally colder. Chris White?
No, but lately they've been warmer than us.
I know.
Every time we're cold, she's like, oh, it's like 60 here. You know why? Because you Canadians are going and blowing all your air down here. So just keep your cold air there, please.
Some having some feelings
Just having
about
some
this
feelings.
weather.
All right, so this is by Catherine Moulton, who you guys are probably pretty familiar with. She's very active in welcoming people in the Spooktacular crew.
She is.
Just love it. She's been around History Goes Bump for a long time. This is titled Johnny. Here are some facts about me. I'm pretty, not beautiful. I'm 5'5" with some curves and brown pixie cut hair. One of my most striking features are my green eyes. I have an imaginary boyfriend. By that I mean, oh, okay, so this is one of those guys who comes up when most guys are hitting on her. We all had one of those boyfriends, right, girls? Like, we're like, we don't want those guys asking us out. Can you just pretend to be my boyfriend? So that's what we got going on here. You know, you're at a club with your girls and some cheesy guy dances up and starts to talk. My girls and I all have a Johnny, and we all start talking about what they did last night. I've never used Johnny at work. That was until Stan started working there. Stan started a few months ago in a different department. At first he stuck to himself. I eat my lunch across the street at a park, and he asked if he could join. I could sense something was off about him. I'm not psychic, but call it girl's intuition. I did not want to seem rude, and so I said yes. He took that to mean yes every day. We all know those guys too. Hey, Cynthia. Oh, we've got Mark here. It's already Christmas where Mark is, so Merry Christmas, Mark.
Yes, Merry Christmas, Mark. Tammy's here too.
Oh, I didn't see Tammy.
Yeah, well,
hello.
Yes, little.
Okay. I'm going to do this or it'll keep. Mark says I'm usually that dude. I have a new girlfriend or wife every time my wife and I go out.
Oh, he's a card.
Okay, so this guy apparently thinks he can have lunch with her every day. We'd sit and talk about normal stuff, getting to know you stuff, you know. Did we have siblings? What college did we go to and such? Then he started asking more personal questions. What did I consider a good date to be? And so on. I got the feeling that we were on a date. I told him that's not right, and only my friends and boyfriends know the answers to those questions. This look crossed his face for just a second. It was anger. That chilled me down to the bone. After that, I started eating in the cafeteria with other coworkers. He took that as a slight. I did not see him hang out with anyone else. Then he would see me alone, walking to the bathroom, etc., and started asking me on dates. I turned him down, but he just kept on. I finally told him about Johnny. That pissed him off. Why didn't you mention him before? Hey, you're flirting with me and putting me on. I think I need to have a word with Johnny. Good luck, because he's on a ship in the middle of the ocean, I say, to use that as an excuse as to why he wasn't around. Look, this has gone on too long. Stay away from me or I'm going to HR. He did not back off. I went to HR and he was talked to. I found out that if he comes near me again at work, he'd be fired. I was shaken. I keep looking around on my way to and from work.
We might need to move some stuff indoors. It's
really blustery out there. I think it's okay for right now.
Okay.
Wow, it's like blowing the cover off the heater out there.
I know. It's
wow. Are we having a hurricane?
I don't know.
Apparently that guy's anger is blowing around on our back patio. Okay, so this guy's angry. Let's see. So she finds out if he comes near, he would be fired. So she keeps looking around on her way to and from work. I ride the train, and my place is only a 10-minute walk to the station. I do walk by a cemetery, and my coworkers joke about it. After several months of nothing, I was walking home one night. I was walking by the cemetery when I felt myself being grabbed from behind. You went to HR and lied to them. Of course, they did not believe me when I said you'd come on to me. One thing Stan did not learn about me was that I'd taken self-defense classes. I used that training to break his hold on me.
You keep on.
And the angry big bad wolf said, I will puff and blow your house away.
That's what's happening.
Surprised, Stan tries to reach for me again. We tussle back and forth. He's really getting pissed off and calling me every name in the book. Of course, the street is deserted, not a single person in sight. I finally knock him off balance enough to push him into the fence. I can see he's about to launch himself at me. But before he can, a look of surprise and anger fills his face. He struggles against the bars of the fence. It's as if something is holding him there. He opens his mouth, but only mumbling sounds come out. I lean in, look him in the eye, and say hi to Johnny. Horror fills his face as I turn away and walk toward home. Behind me, I hear a faint, crackling sound, a noise, and muffled screams. I know that if I turn around, the street will be empty. I guess I should have said that I have a friend who is a boy ghost. You see, Johnny died in a car accident in 1952. Since I can see and talk to him, he's become protective of me. The people in the neighborhood were glad enough to be rid of drug dealers and such that they did not ask why. Let's just say some things are better left buried. That was great. Thank you, Catherine, for sharing that with us. Looks like we've been joined by Ann Kelly, and Chelsea's here. Did a trampoline fly past? I mean, we do have like a little bench or little thing that looks like a trampoline out there for the dogs. It could fly.
No, I'm not worried about that.
And we have, is that Caro? Hopefully I'm saying that right, Caro, C-A-R-O. Well, thanks for bringing in the plants so they don't get blown away. We might actually have, didn't they usually show the Wizard of Oz around Christmas time? Isn't that like a annual thing? We might be going to Kansas. All right, our next story is In the Dark at 8 Canyon, and this was by Jeremy D. Kirby.
I'm gonna turn off the lights. Holy smokes.
Hopefully it doesn't blow our lights away.
Well, I turned them off just because it may get blown out just from the thing.
Don't knock the phone over. Here, well, now you moved it so it's not in the right place. Here we go.
Right.
Okay. I sunk into my sleeping bag and let the pains of alpine trekking leave my body. The tent shuddered as a cool mountain breeze whistled up through the canyon below. You don't want a fire? My brother asked. Nah, I just want to sleep. He zipped up the tent window. Not before some good ghost stories. I grinned. Okay, I'll start. In the waning evening light, our tradition began. Once upon a time, there was a man driving home from work. It was dark. No one was out at 3 a.m., just he and the road meandering through the forest. His head nodded, but the pitter-patter of freshly falling rain hitting his windshield stirred him awake. The sky lit up as a bolt of lightning cut across it and plunged into the ground somewhere beyond the trees. Thunder shook the car so hard that the dash lights flickered. The man pushed down the accelerator, but the engine failed, and he slowed to a stop on the side of that lonely road. He was helpless as the rain began to pour, but through the foggy windshield, the faint flicker of a porch light could be seen. So the man left the car, and into the night, into the storm, he plunged. He pushed on towards the light until the looming silhouette of an old mansion infiltrated his vision. He climbed the foreboding stairs, finally...
Sorry.
Stop bouncing the table, Kelly.
The thing is like ripping down on the... I mean, look at the here.
He climbed the foreboding stairs, finally making it to the front door. He tapped the cold iron lamp, but there was no bulb. Not even a sign that a candle had been lit. The door creaked open in front of him, so he entered. There was a large room, strangely visible in the dark. He moved cautiously around old furniture draped with dusty white sheets. He pushed through cobwebs toward the other side of the room, toward a door free of any latches, toward a faint light. The door weakly resisted as he slowly pushed it open. Then from a kitchen counter leapt a screaming kitten. Ah! You know, it's one of those funky jump scares that you see in a horror movie. I laughed as Adam about put a new window in our little tent. My turn, he started. My turn. He started with the siege at 8 Canyon. Of course he would, because that indeed was where we were. I struggled to keep my eyes open as he narrated the horrific story. As he spoke, the darkness soon subverted the camp, but a strange light invaded my periphery, a light not unlike the one in my haunted tale. I ignored the first flash, but then another came. Hold on, brother. I left the tent to find the culprit. Maybe it was a plane or a distant chopper. I was met with nothing other than cold rock and silence. The quiet seemed to speak an ominous language. The forest did not sing her night songs, and even the stars on this clear evening refused to shine. Suddenly, from a direction I could not discern, I heard a beastly howl, then another that seemed to slam into the back of my head. I crouched low, covered in chills, heart pounding. Silence. "Look over there," whispered Adam. 3 luminescent orbs hovered towards us from the canyon. He stood and began to walk slowly toward them. "Adam, stop! Get back here!" He was not in fear as I was. He lived for this sort of thing. He was the one always raving about ghost stories and haunted history. Oh, he's one of us. He studied paranormal creatures and interdimensional beings and UFOs. The lights moved forward, but one by one went out, as if they were entering behind some obstruction that was not there before sunset. "Adam!" I again called in a hushed tone. Even the wind refused to move. I squinted my eyes as pinpoints of light exploded like a bucket of flashlights falling down a mountain. Adam began to scream, "Help! Help!" Through those otherworldly illuminations, I could see creatures, 4-legged shadows enclosing upon him. They stood on 2 legs as they took him. His screams evaporated as thick as the white lights vanished. I rushed toward him after all of them. I didn't care what was there. I would fight for my brother, but it was too late. All were gone. I sobbed in wonder and in terror and finally retreated, an exhausted mess of a person, into my tent. The night songs and mountain breeze returned. By sunrise, my frazzled emotions became laser focused. I was angry and determined. Adam was not killed. He was taken, and I would find him. His wide nostrils flared in confused rage as the long huff rumbled my chest. Not only his gargantuan form and defined muscles, but the broken limbs, trees even, laying behind him were a testament to his strength. I did not want to challenge him, but I couldn't help looking into his eyes. They were darkness personified. Yet through that prison of evil, through the primordial expulsions of fear, hunger, and lust, shined something not as ancient, something that I grew up with and lost in this very forest 10 years ago. So apparently we've traveled forward in time 10 years. This is what happens when you limit people to 1,000 words, or like, okay, we just jumped into a vortex.
The time warp.
Let's do the time warp again. Okay. Did I find him? Could it be? Those familiar eyes returned my gaze. The calming creature lowered itself. We were face to face. His soft skin told me he was man, while his body, covered in coarse black fur and disproportionate features, told me they had put him in a vessel other than his own. A vessel created for some strange science or from a world not our own. How could this be? I stretched my hand toward him, my brother, and he stretched forth his. I saw the light on one side, then the other. I exhaled as a massive hand crushed my chest, pulling me away. Screams, howls, my brother beast, exasperated in a silent rage, surrounded by orbs. Darkness. So his brother was apparently taken by these creatures. They turned him into some kind of Bigfoot thing, and now he is about to be crushed by his brother, or become one of those two, maybe.
So this is what happens in Florida weather.
Oh, isn't that delightful? It's so, like we were saying, it's a little windy out.
The cover for the heater, one of those stand heaters with the dome on top. This used to cover the dome, and it was all shredded except for one little part that I had to cut off. There's no frogs in it though, so you're safe. Mark said we broke the 4th wall. We're going to be breaking that a lot this evening. I mean, this weather is something else. If Kelly, normally we're sitting outside. No, you really want me to break the 4th wall? If Kelly was to stand up, you would see that she's actually wearing her pajama bottoms. Hey. I have my Mickey Christmas. He's got his little reindeer antlers. And you have slippers on, so. I do have slippers on. Oh, God, you're going to knock your beer over. No, I'm not. Okay. You're going to break that chair is what you can. Do you, would you like to read the next one, or do you want me to continue on? Go ahead and continue on. I'm in the process of keeping an eye on everything outside and running out to Mark says that the wind will break the 4th wall. It's going to break something. She made Breakwind.
Okay.
Moving right along.
I didn't have tacos for dinner. Okay, so this one is called My Lookalike
Taco Tuesday.
by Joe Thompson. No, it's not. It's Thursday. When I was 19, I'd come home from college to visit my family for the weekend. My parents said I could make some extra cash if I cleaned out their hallway closet for their upcoming yard sale. I took them up on it because I really, really wanted the new REM cassette. As I pulled out boxes of old game boards, books, and fabric scraps, a dark green box caught my eye. I'd never seen this green box before and was captivated by the vintage green paper that had hundreds of metallic gold roses printed on it. My dad poked his head in to survey my progress and told me that the box contained photos of relatives from his dad's side. I opened the box and carefully glanced through the stack of battered black and white photos. My distant relatives were dressed in 1800s clothing. Perfect for our Victorian tradition.
This is true.
I remember I thought my relatives looked peculiar because there was not a single smile amongst them.
You don't smile in the picture, so.
I hope these aren't those kind of Victorian pictures.
Wow.
At the bottom of the stack, I came across one tiny photo of a young woman. I caught my breath and shuddered. The woman staring at me from the photo looked exactly like me. It could have been a photo taken of myself in the 1800s. What made me shudder the most, out of all of the relatives, she had a smile, an eerie smile to be exact. My dad told me that she was my great-grandmother, and then his eyes widened as he looked at the photo and then looked at me, and then he exclaimed that I looked just exactly like her. I remembered goosebumps appearing on my arms and stumbling out into the hallway because I had started to feel claustrophobic. Even though I marveled at how genetics can transfer between family members, a heavy, melancholy feeling washed over me. Truth be told, I really did not like that I looked like someone else. Even if it was my great-grandmother, I wanted to believe that my looks are mine only, that they are one of a kind. You know, we all have a doppelganger out there.
That's true.
She apparently doesn't know that. A few years later, I got a job in a city not far from my parents' home. I took up photography as a hobby and on the weekends went to a photography studio to develop my own photos. The studio was based in an old brownstone building that only had one entry. The entry was located in the back of the building. To get in, you had to walk down a long, narrow hallway with no exits that climbed up to the first story of the building and would lead you directly to the front counter. When I got inside, I went up to purchase some supplies. A clerk working behind the counter asked me if I'd forgotten something. I told her that I'd just gotten there and was confused by her comment. She told me that she was positive it was me just here minutes ago because I had on the same black puffer coat as another young woman who looked exactly like me. I remember the clerk had made me feel uncomfortable by her comment, and then she said if I wasn't the young woman who was here earlier, if I'd passed a young woman in the hallway on the way into the building. Or I guess she's asking, did you pass somebody?
Mm-hmm.
I felt goosebumps again on my arms. I'd passed no one in the hallway coming in, which meant that the woman that looked like me was still in the building somewhere. I sprinted down the hallway and quickly got into my car. I was shaking and breathing so heavy that my breath frosted the windshield. Could there really be someone in this city who looked exactly like me? Do doppelgangers really exist? Apparently she has heard of them. I had a sensation to look up at the building window and I froze. There was someone looking at me from inside the building. Even though my vision was foggy from the frosty windshield, I knew for certain that the person looking at me was wearing a black puffer coat. As years drifted by, my thoughts of the woman who looked like me evaporated. I got married, became a mom, and never thought about it twice, until one autumn day. I'd walked into an antique store to browse through some vintage music cassettes. REM vintage music cassettes. Do you feel old?
REM, I do now.
REM music cassettes, to be exact. The store was set up in an old warehouse. Each vendor had their own space to sell their goods. Some spaces were decorated to look exactly like rooms you would find in a house. When I walked into the store, a clerk bellowed at me that behind the huge 1800s cash register. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. When I walked into the store, a clerk bellowed at me from behind the huge 1800s cash register. He'd asked me if I was here to look over my space. My mouth dropped. I told him I'd never been in here before. The clerk didn't hear my reply and told me to go look at my space towards the back of the warehouse. Well, here comes the rain.
Mm-hmm.
I reluctantly walked towards the back of the store. I told you we needed to do this inside. I was older now, and this time I decided I wasn't going to run away. I was going to face my fear directly in the eye. When I got to the back of the store, I froze. The small space was decorated in the same green vintage paper with gold roses as my dad's box of old photos. Ooh, that's weird. The books stacked on a small wooden table were the exact same books that I'd pulled out from my parents' closet years ago. I was paralyzed. The room was spinning. How could this be? Then I heard the store's door open and the clerk shouting to the person who came in that he did not realize that I'd gone back outside. She was here. And then I heard her footsteps clicking on the concrete floor heading towards the back of the store, coming towards me. The next thing I knew, I felt a presence. There was someone standing right behind me. I was trapped. The only thing I could do was turn around. When I slowly did, I screamed.
Dun, dun, dun.
Hey, Ashley, welcome. Karen is here. Welcome, welcome.
And I do have to say to N. Kelly, because he was wanting to send a story, I tried to load it. It wouldn't load. So thank you for the effort and the offer. It wouldn't come through for some reason.
Ashley says that happened to me in Albuquerque. You ran into your doppelganger? Oh, God.
That would be creepy.
I hope I never run into my doppelganger. I've been told by people that they've seen someone who looks like me.
Oh, I've been told that so many times.
I think everybody's probably heard that a time or two.
Yes, Mark, we do need a sound effects board. Don't have one.
This is my sound effects board. Scream for us, Kelly. Oh, okay. Okay. That's good. That was good. Okay. Now that everybody's ears have been pierced and not in the earring way. Okay, this is the final chapter by Scott Booker. And for those of you who saw our little Merry Christmas Eve logo that has that's been Christmas-fied, I guess you could call it. Scott's the one who did that.
Savvy's concerned with the
Well, because you were screaming.
You told me to.
She probably thinks I'm trying to kill you.
I wouldn't have done it.
Flames had already started to engulf the house as the stench of decaying flesh permeated the air.
What'd I say?
Derek bolted up the stairs as the floorboards crumbled beneath his feet. Off in the distance, he heard Maria let out a blood-curdling scream. We don't need the sound effect.
I'm better at like a witch cackle and stuff. So I don't know why I said whatever.
He knew that he only had minutes left to get them out of the house before the house annihilated them, and Derek was not about to let anyone else he loved fall prey to his nightmare. As he made his way to Jeffrey's room, he heard someone howl in severe agony somewhere off in the distance. He could not let these screams deter him from what he knew he had to do, which was save Maria and Jeffrey. The others could rot in hell for all he cared.
Wow.
With an abrupt kick to the center of the heavy oak door, hinges flying off the wall and shards of wood splintering across the entryway, Derek could see Jeffrey curled up in the middle of his bed. Tears were flowing down his cheeks, and he had a death grip on his favorite stuffed rabbit he affectionately called Freddie. Derek rushed over to Jeffrey, quickly knelt down beside him, and tried to get him quieted down enough that he could get him picked up. Jeffrey, still with tears in his eyes, quietly looked over at his dad and stuttered, "There's a monster under the bed." Instinctively, Derek leaned down to take a quick glance under the bed. What he saw was not a monster, but rather Jeffrey laying flat on the floor with a horrified look on his face. His mouth formed the words, "Dad, there's a monster on the bed," but no sound emitted from his lips. Derek scurried back from the bed, at which point he could now see two Jeffreys, the one on top of the bed and the one underneath. Both were crying, both of them starting to beg their dad for help. Feeling like he was spinning out of control and starting to lose his mind, he yelled, "Where's your sister?" The Jeffrey on the bed gave him a mischievous grin, while the other one said, "She's in heaven." As Derek reached out his hand to pull his son out from underneath the bed, the other child started to assume the form of a creature straight out of the pits of Hades and started shrieking like a crazed banshee. Derek felt Jeffrey's fingers intertwine with his own, yanking his son with all his might up into his arms as he leapt off the floor and started running towards the door. Derek could smell the foul odor of the creature and knew that it was coming fast upon them. Still holding Jeffrey, he pulled the dagger from his belt and flung it at the creature as he spun around, coming face to face with it. The dagger went straight into the creature's head, causing it to evaporate into a thin, smoky mist. As if the creature's death somehow affected the rest of the chaos happening throughout the house, everything got eerily quiet. Derek turned and looked down the hallway towards the master bedroom. He could feel the heat of the fire at his back and tucked Jeffrey into his chest to try to protect him. His heart beating furiously, he inched his way down the hallway, not knowing what was lying ahead. The sound of the fire started to intensify. Horrific moans started to come from below. Whether it was the others or the house itself, Derek was not sure. As he got to the door of the bedroom, he sat Jeffrey down on his feet and told him to stay behind him. The door was slightly ajar, so Derek pushed it gently, hearing the hinges groan as it slowly opened. As the door opened completely, Derek could see Maria in the bathroom staring into the vanity mirror. He whispered her name and gestured for her to come over to where they were standing, but she did not budge an inch. Not sure if she'd not heard him, he maneuvered his way further into the room. He could feel Jeffrey hanging onto his belt loop with an extremely tight grip. He whispered again, "Maria, come here. We have to get out of this place." That was when he heard the strained sounds of her trying to speak. He moved quicker into the bathroom and froze in horror as he saw Maria's reflection in the mirror coming out of the wall with her hands wrapped tightly around Maria's throat. Jeffrey let go of his dad's belt and dropped to the floor screaming. Maria's reflection turned its head toward the sound and started spewing profanities at him. It must have loosened its grip as Maria pushed hard against the sink, throwing her backwards away from the reflection in the mirror. It turned its head now towards Maria and lunged further out of the wall towards her. Ooh, who wants it coming out of the wall at you? Not sure what to expect when he did it, Derek thrust his entire body at the reflection, passing right through it and onto the floor. This distracted the reflection enough that Maria ripped the shower curtain bar off the wall and rammed it into the mirror, shattering it into a million pieces. With a tremendous roar, the reflection disappeared. Maria grabbed Derek's hand, pulled him off the floor, and headed into the bedroom. Jeffrey had already stood up and had his arms out for his mom to scoop him up into hers. Derek said, "The stairway's gone. The only way out is the window." Pushing the huge glass panes open, the three of them crawled out onto the ledge and scurried down the trellis. They ran as far as the garden's edge before they all collapsed in complete exhaustion. Derek laid in the wet dirt and pulled his family close next to him. He looked back at what had once been their dream home. It had totally disintegrated and was now a burning pile of ash. Dark figures seemed to be looming around the property. Derek pulled his cell phone out of his back pocket, surprised to see that it was even working. He dialed 911 and waited for the operator to pick up. It has been reported that the operator only heard 3 words before the call went silent. It was a child's voice speaking, and it said, "Freddie killed them." And he even included a picture. Creepy. So if it's a child saying Freddie killed him, it makes you wonder, did mom and dad get out of the house?
I don't know.
Because Freddie was supposedly the stuffed animal. Watch out for those stuffed bunnies. They can be vicious.
I think we still have a dollar store bunny around here somewhere.
We do have a dollar store bunny. Maybe we should get rid of it. Feeling a little creeped out by it now. Hey, Gwen, how are you? Did we have anybody else new join us?
I think there were a couple. Ashley.
Amanda's come in here. Oh, there's Scott. Did you hear us reading your story there, Scott?
Hopefully.
All right. This is Jeremy.
Standing behind you. Thanks, Mark.
It only looks like a Christmas tree. This is another story by Jeremy Kirby, so he sent us 2 of them. Hey, hello, Michelle. This is called 100 Seconds to Midnight. Put your mask on or get out of here. I shook my head. His nasally voice was almost desperate. I fiddled around in my bag, searching for it. I just tossed my dirty clothes back in there after my shower. I could still hear him in the background. "I'm not getting a $500 fine for you not wearing a mask in my store." There it was. I pulled out my mask and strapped it on. I drifted out of the store and across the truck stop parking lot in a fog. I climbed into my sleeper and crashed. The road was long that day and I needed sleep. I turned the radio to anything that would make a noise, something calm and steady that would help me sleep. White noise? No, I hated static. A Southern preacher talking about the end of days? Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, I think you should be listening to that. I might like the static a little better.
Winner, chicken dinner.
I closed my eyes and drifted off. The new Red Army marched west across barren, parched land. The once fertile river was now hard and cracked and made for a nice highway. The trucks and tanks moved quickly, but the war choppers moved even faster. Sirens all across America sounded as Israel came under attack. Black diesel smoke shot out of my stacks as I sped toward my house, eliminating every obstacle that obstructed my path. The telltale hemlock rising above the other trees marked the location of my house. I spotted this tree with joy many times after long hauls. My family always eagerly awaited me inside those walls, and I more eagerly awaited them. That tree was such a joy, but it was a mark now. Not a joy, but a destination that I must, at all costs, arrive at. I had to save my family. The tractor shook and dirt flew as my tires dug into my driveway, halting my 800,000-pound rig to a quick stop. I burst through the door as fighter jets shot over my house. My wife, Katie, ran to me, but, "Honey, what are you wearing?" I asked. "We have to wear these, don't you know?" "Know what?" I asked, confused. "They've dropped biological weapons all across the country. We can't breathe the air or we'll die." Oh, this is going to be not a good story. Dystopia. Yeah, I'm feeling kind of Mad Max. I ran to my little girl who lay gasping on the couch. I lifted her in the tank she had strapped across her chest in my arms. Her mask and attached hoses were secure, so I ran her to the big Kenworth and lay her in the disheveled sleeper bed, tossing the now useless mask off my pillow. I took the large canvas bug-out bag from my wife and helped her into the cab. I handed her a 1911 pistol with a full clip. We tore out of there, and the wind from my open windows hit me in the face. Along with the realization that they had been open all day, my poor Katie, pale-faced and wet with fever, sat quiet. "How long have you had that oxygen mask on, baby?" "They dropped the bomb," she answered, "so we rushed to the shelter. They had stockpiles of the tanks and were handing them out to everyone. They told us we had to use them. They implored us to stay, but we escaped back to the house where I knew you would be eventually." "Take the mask off." "What?" "Take it off. I'm not sick. I've been in the air all day without a tank. Take it off." Fresh air filled the truck as I ground gears, speeding to the safest place I knew of. The warehouse is on the outskirts of the city next to the woods. It'll be filled with as much food as we need for now, and it will provide cover from attacks. We have enough arms to protect us from looters if need be, I explained to my wife. We rounded the bend and saw the city below us. It was reduced to smoldering piles of rubble. There were no outskirts or industrial parks left standing. All was a total loss. "Don't cry, babe. I'm going to get us out of here." My heart broke as she wept. Trees scraped the rig as we pushed through darkened back roads meandering along the mountainsides. The deeper into the wilderness I could get us, the better. We came to a rest as the road diminished into mere trails. This would be as good a place as any. "What's happening?" Katie asked. "War. It was only a matter of time, I guess." I should have said something more comforting to her, but I was never good at showing emotion. What should I feel in a moment like this? Death was always on its way. We just never knew how. My little baby girl crawled up front with us. She curled up on my lap, still tired, but life was returning to her tiny 6-year-old body. A realization hit me that the government, the shadow government, was trying to destroy the citizens of America or the world, and the supposed oxygen tank was just another method. Who was our enemy? Who had we joined alliances with? I tuned the radio to the news. "The White House has been hit. I repeat, the White House has been hit." Another voice came through the crackling station. "We have confirmation. The president is dead." At that news, I looked at my wife with wide eyes as her door swung open, and she was pulled out screaming. Gunfire from automatic weapons echoed from the shadows of the forest. I awoke in a cold sweat, the mask lying on the truck floor. I heard the radio crackle to life. "And when is this all supposed to happen?" The preacher answered, "Winter of 2020.
Ironically.
So don't fall asleep while listening to a Southern preacher talk about the end of the world. Woo,
no kidding. That was a good offering.
Yeah.
I do have to say, Gio's here.
Hi, Gio. Oh, yes, I see her. All right. Well, welcome. Merry Christmas. And we do have 4 people. We have Sarah and Aaron here in the chat over at YouTube. So hello to you
Hey,
guys
guys.
as well. There's a couple other people, but I don't have any names to go with you. So welcome.
And
all right.
We're just going through some extra flash fiction
Yes.
that we received. And then we're going to go on and read
Some other chilling,
ghost
scary
from
stories.
there.
Written by professionals, although we consider you guys to be professionals too.
Very much so. Very talented writers.
I mean, if we're professionals. All right, this is called Liar's Dice by Samantha Kimmel Harvey. Annie marched toward the pale green light emanating from the beach, gold doubloon warm against her palm. In the darkness, the green fire cast shadowy figures against the dunes. Gruff Duncan voices? I must want a donut. Gruff, drunken voices saying sea shanties. Okay, saying sea shanties.
Say it 5 times
Say
fast.
that really fast.
Saying sea shanties.
Okay, I'm going to get through this line. Gruff, drunken voices sang sea shanties to the melody of a squeaky fiddle. Perched on the brow of the dune. That is the brow of the dune, right?
Uh-huh.
She shouted over the fiddle and crackling flames. My name is Annie Bloom, and I demand to see the captain.
Parlay.
Parlay. I demand parlay. The translucent figures turned toward her, their empty eye sockets cavernous, their sea-drenched skin pale, rotting tufts of hair still dripping under their tricorn hats and bandanas. A large man rose from the crate upon which he sat. He wore a long black overcoat with the captain's insignia and tall boots caked in seaweed. Engraved in his neck were the purple marks of the hangman's rope. I am Louis Goutard, captain of the La Pax, captain of the La Pa, he said, his voice raspy. Annie crossed the sand, eyes fixed on Goutard. You and your men have trespassed into my family's house night after night, breaking our neck. Oh, breathing. breaking
our necks.
Breathing on our necks, taunting us.
Short drop and a sudden stop.
Something. And turning our dreams into nightmares. I want you to leave my family alone. Leave this place and never return. Goutard grinned. The stench of his rotting teeth made Annie gag. We were here first, he said. It is you who should leave. Though she trembled, Annie revealed the gold doubloon she found while snorkeling with her dad. This can be yours if you leave now. Goutard eyed the doubloon. A piece from my treasure, you no doubt filched, he said. Well, if that is the type of girl you are, then we shall gamble our futures. He opened the crate and removed a small leather pouch. Inside the pouch were 6 dice carved with bone, yellowed with age. Carved from bone, yellowed with age. Goutard placed 2 pewter tankards on the crate. You lose, you join our eternal crew. She drew in a deep breath, her heart racing. And when you lose, you leave me and my family alone forever. Pirates always cheated, but so did her brother whenever they played. She placed the doubloon on the crate and sat in the warm sand. Annie up, Captain. He placed another doubloon beside hers. We play liar's dice. Take 3 dice and a tankard. Do you know the rules? She nodded. My brother and I play. Excellent. Let's begin then, Miss Bloom. The dice rattled in the tankards as they shook them. Both slammed their tankards down, covering their dice. Annie peeked at her hand. 1 4 and 2 2s. Ladies first, said Goutard. I'm a gentleman after all. Captain, I bet 3 4s. 5 4s, Goutard countered. Annie called his bluff. Liar. They lifted the tankards. Annie's cheeks flushed when she saw the dice revealed. Goutard was correct. There were 5 number 4s face up on the crate. He took a die from her and tossed it back into the pouch. You still have 2 chances, Miss Bloom. Annie pressed her lips together as they both rolled the dice in their tankards. This time, she studied the captain's face as he examined his hand, committing each expression to memory. She then looked at her own hand. 1 4 and 1 3. Goutard lit his pipe and took a long drag. 3 6s. Annie remarked the slightest twitch in the corner of his lip. Was it a tell? She tapped her nails on the crate. 2 3s. He leaned in. Liar. Smoke snaked from his mouth as he spoke. Annie tipped her tankard as he did the same. Goutard let out a growl. Annie was right. There were 2 3s face up. She took a die away from Guitar. That's a tie, Captain. His face flashed red by the light of his pipe. You're a girl who enjoys a good bed, I see, he said. So let's just cut to the chase, shall we? 1 die apiece, all or nothing. The other pirates circled round. All or nothing, they chanted.
All or nothing, all or nothing.
Annie locked eyes with Guitar, observing his mannerisms. They reminded her of her brother when he was plotting something. She returned another die to the pouch. I accept. Guitar did the same. Then let's roll. Annie shook the die in her tankard. The pirates had closed in around them, chanting and sloshing ale. Just don't really slosh it. She kept her eyes on the captain's hands. He slammed his tankard down. So did she. But her eyes never once strayed from Guitar. In the chaos, there was a small yellow flash while he puffed on his pipe. It was so fast, she thought it might have been an illusion. Annie sat up straighter and peeked at her hand. 1-1. You first, said Guitar. I insist. Annie's pulse thundered in her ears. 3 1s. The pirates erupted in boos and hisses, but Guitar's face remained unchanged. Perhaps I misheard you, he said. We each have 1 die in play, Miss Bloom. His lip twitched again. Annie saw the Annie saw the sweat beading on his brow and the reddened face of his right-hand man behind him. I stand by my bet, Captain. 3 1s. Guitar let out a shout and knocked the tankards to the sand. There on the crate were 3 dice, all showing the number 1. You cheated! Guitar pointed a bony finger, his eyes flashed crimson. How else could you have known? I told you, I play with my brother, said Annie, and he's one of the biggest cheats I know. She collected her doubloon and rose. A deal's a deal, Captain Guitar. The pirates roared as they dissolved into the darkness. The campfire extinguished. Fiddle muted. Guitar was the last to fade from view. I'll be back, Miss Bloom, never forget. His words dissipated on the wind, leaving Annie alone on the beach, 6 yellow dice abandoned at her feet. So she must have either cheated or did her brother help her cheat? Was her brother dead?
Oh,
and he came to help her cheat.
No, I think she just was used to knowing.
Hello, Maureen. Welcome. We also have Kathleen Shanahan Maka. You know what, Kathleen? We were going past Galveston and we waved in your direction as we were going from San Antonio to Houston. We were like, Kathleen!
We did that to many on our trip.
We did a lot of waves as we went by.
Yeah, Darren Cook. As we were driving past Palm Desert.
Yep.
Several people.
Lots of waves.
We thought about it.
This is our final flash fiction. Many of you may recall that Bobby Watts won. She got the first place in our flash fiction. Well, she gave us 2 stories, and this is the second one that she contributed called The Sound of Fear. Wanda awoke to the sound of scratching. Sitting straight up, eyes still closed, and her head cocked to the side, she waited to hear the sound again. After a few seconds of silence, she resigned herself to the thought that it might have just been her cat Pepper, who she could feel curled up at the foot of her bed, moving about. Relieved, Wanda snuggled back under her covers. But as she felt herself slip back to sleep, she heard the sound again. Did that sound? Do you think they could hear the scratching? Scratch, scratch, scratch.
On tile floor.
What is that sound? Where is it coming from, she thought. She sat up again, this time eyes wide open, staring into the darkness. She let her eyes adjust to the pitch-black room. As they adjusted, she studied her cat, still hoping the sound was coming from him. All she needed was a good, solid reason to blame it on. To put her mind and imagination at ease. Then she could get back to the sleep she desperately needed. This was because lately she'd been listening to too many horror podcasts before bed, and those were leading to some very strange dreams and fretful sleep. Neither were good for her anxiety. As she looked at her ball of a black cat, she could tell the sound wasn't coming from him. He remained steadfast in his slumber. Lucky him. Having not heard the scratching again for the past minute or so, she took it as a good sign. This time, willing to blame it on just being part of another crazy dream in the making, she started to relax. Though she loved scary things, the spookier the better, she knew she didn't have the mettle to handle them in real life. And the very last thing she needed was to wrestle a ghoul at 3 o'clock in the morning. Besides, nothing macabre or thrilling ever happened to her, and she knew there was a rational explanation for everything. She gave her room one last look before lying back down. Though still dark, she could make out that everything seemed to look in place. Except for her closet door. Her open closet door. Why was it open? I would never leave that door open. Though pragmatic, Wanda did know the first rule of horror was to never leave a door to a dark room or hallway open, especially at night. That's just an invitation for monsters and demons. So why was her door open? What if someone is in there? Are they peeking out? Are they watching me? Is that where the sound was coming from? Wanda felt her heart beating fast, a telltale sign that she was headed for an anxiety attack. Fighting the urge to yelp and hide under the covers, Wanda studied the door more. She realized that it was only open a few inches. Calm down. Think things over rationally. Maybe a shoe is blocking it from closing all the way. You've been meaning to clean it for a while. Yeah, that's it. Nothing to be afraid of. It's just your anxiety causing you to psych yourself out. Her nerves seemed to calm, and she could feel her heart rate and breathing begin to slow. I really do need to lay off the horror stuff, she thought. Scratch, scratch, scratch. In worrying about the closet door, Wanda totally forgot about the mysterious sound. To her relief, she could tell it wasn't coming from the direction of the closet. Scratch, 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 scratch. Oh, great. It's changing up the rhythm. Now I can't blame it on something benign like the air conditioning. Scratch, 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 scratch. Despite her earlier efforts to calm herself, Wanda's heart began to race again, and so did her thoughts. That sounded really close. If it wasn't coming from the closet, was it coming from under the bed? Oh God, oh God, oh God. What if it's a rat? That actually would be worse than a monster to me. Wanda eyed her still sleeping cat. Some guard cat. But what if it's not a rat? What if it's a person, an intruder, toying with me? Maybe they were in the closet and crawled out and under the bed and they're just waiting for me to put my feet on the floor and then they'll grab ... Wanda knew she was beginning to really spiral out. She had to do something to calm herself down and get her anxiety under control. It was then she remembered a trick her mom told her about as a child. So she covered both her ears with her hands and began to hum. And it's scratch, 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 scratch. How is it possible that the sound got louder? And why is it louder in my left ear?
Because there's a cockroach in it.
Oh my God, that's even worse than the rats. As someone who has had a roach crawl across her face in the middle of the night, I can attest that that would be horrifying. It was at that moment Wanda knew she would never get a good night's sleep again because not only did she hear the scratching sound, this time she felt it, as whatever was inside her left ear burrowed itself deeper and
That's
deeper.
your right ear.
Yuck!
Yeah. What's on my finger?
Oh, well, welcome, Elizabeth. Kathleen says, next time you're in the area, I'll give you a cemetery tour and a ghost tour.
Excellent.
We will definitely be stopping in Galveston for that. Okay, let me get down here for our chilling ghost story book. Isn't this got a cool cover?
It's so cool.
Gothic. I don't know why it's backwards, but you know, you guys can read it, right? Look, the back's even cool too. Okay. So I have picked up, it's called Gothic Fantasy. So
we're having some crazy weather.
And now it's like totally calm and there's no rain.
But it was just pouring a minute ago.
And like windy as all get out. Lori's here too. Lori says, thanks for all you do, ladies. Been here for months now, and I really appreciate my podcast besties. Well, we appreciate you too. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for joining us.
And thank you for joining us this evening.
On Christmas Eve, we realize everybody has a lot of plans, even, COVID
even though we have
aside.
COVID, a lot of people are still, hanging with their families. We already actually had our Christmases with our families. So
yeah, albeit brief.
Very brief.
And masked and distanced.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it managed to squeeze it in.
It was very weird seeing your parents again and being like, hi. We didn't even hug.
Fist bump from
I know.
Yeah,
we didn't get anywhere near them. We were kind of in the same room with them, but sucks. Next year will be better, I'm sure.
I hope so.
All right, so this is called Unclaimed by Lisa Piscavus Smith. Isn't that funny? I wonder if Piscavus is her maiden name and then she married a guy named Smith. And she's probably like, first of all, she spells her name Lesa. So she spells her name different. And then she's got this name Piscavus and then it's like Smith. She's like, geez, wow. Maybe you could take my name.
Well, I went from Roberts to Rang and then I had to explain it all the time.
Oh.
So
Sarah Warner twirled the oversized stone that graced her finger. She knew all about hiding secrets. After all, she'd been doing it since she was a child. Behind the shimmering beauty of the diamond, the stone was cold, hard, and also hiding a secret. The jeweler had pointed out a tiny fracture hiding beneath the surface of the sparkle and shine. Secrets seemed to be the theme inside the Warner mansion. Sarah picked up the bottle of sherry from her husband's desk. Even through her botulism-laden forehead, lines of disbelief formed. You bought a what?
This is a very current book.
Yeah. At first I was like, she has botulism in her forehead. How?
In terms of having injections.
Yeah, I forgot.
Okay.
This is clearly not from the Victorian era.
No.
I believe you heard me the first time. It is really no secret. Not that we have any secrets between us now, do we? Her husband smiled while tapping on a corpse.
All right. Well, just bury it under the floorboards like they did at the Marshall House.
I actually think I'd be more offended that you spent $600 on a bottle of sherry than on the corpse. Sarah covered her face with her hands before allowing them to slide down to her cheeks. Her skin pulled tighter. Booth Warner, you have officially snapped. He reclined in his desk chair, stroking the buttery mahogany leather. My insanity has afforded you many pleasures, hasn't it? I suggest you tread lightly on my ego, or else you might end up fodder from our next novel. Sarah could not deny that Booth's notoriety had afforded her a luxurious lifestyle. However, it was not his writing that had earned him such fame. She owed her gratitude to the television producer that turned his books into a series with a hot lead actor and a crazed cult following. If she were to be brutally honest, she would admit that Booth's checkbook was far more attractive to her than the actual man was.
Jeez.
Well, at least she's honest.
Okay.
Personally, I found Charleston's idea ingenious. He opened the bottle and poured himself a generous glass of the straw-colored liquid. The city was in dire need of financial help, and the council voted to auction off the unclaimed body of a serial killer. He took a sip of the wine before continuing, how utterly delicious. And I'm certain the good folks of Charleston expected researchers and universities to get into a bidding war. A successful study on just what makes a serial killer would be quite an accomplishment for any institution. I'm sure they never expected a novelist to place the winning bid. Sarah swatted at the plume of smoke beginning to surround her. Booth, I swear, smoking is going to kill you if I don't do it first. Please explain to me just what on earth possessed you to make such a gruesome purchase. Hey, Amy, how are you? Possessed? Good one, my dear, he said with a laugh. It was quite philanthropic of me, don't you think? As for me, please do not waste your time trying to plot my demise. It would take a far craftier spirit than you, I'm afraid. Sarah lowered her head. The multitude of plastic surgeries it had taken to become a trophy of Booth Warner had managed to shield her from his barrage of constant insults. However, sometimes they still stung. All right, if you must have the details, I will tell you. Are you sure you want to hear them? He raised his silvery eyebrows in an eerie dance. Stop it, Booth. You know I hate that gory stuff. She stood and adjusted her tiny skirt around her oddly tanned legs. Please, just tell me where you plan on keeping that thing. Larry, if you please. Sarah's ears wiggled and she attempted to wrinkle her brow. Who? Larry Wingo. That thing has a name and it's Larry. From now on, please do not refer to him as the body or the corpse or worse, that thing. Booth moved toward his wife, wrapping his arm around her slender waist. Stale tobacco from his breath slithered around her neck as he whispered in her ear. They said he murdered 4 women, plotted and planned his strategy for years. He was, by all accounts, a genius. His name is Larry, understand? In vain, Sarah tried to free herself from her husband's grip. You don't have that Larry in this house, do you? For heaven's sake, Sarah, do you actually think I'd keep a corpse inside my own home? Booth returned to his pipe. A long inhale followed by a short exhale and slight cough interrupted his thoughts. Oh yes, corpse in the house. That is extreme even for me. Other than your side of the bed, a dead body has never once been there. He took his checkbook from the desk drawer and waved it at her. I'll tell you this much, glass at the sound. The guest room looked like someone had been sleeping in there. Mimas got some things at the auction last month and had them delivered yesterday. He probably stored them in there. Yes, ma'am, we'd spot anything new. Slowly, she pushed the door open further and went inside. And just as an aside, since I am a cleaning lady, probably the best person to ask if anything looks different or moved around would be the cleaning lady. She should have had her go with her.
True.
The rumpled silk bedspread gave the appearance that someone or something had been sitting on the bed. Sarah dropped to her knees and checked under the bed, finding not even a dust bunny. She ran her fingers along the shelves of the mahogany bookcase. Along the smoothness of the wood housed a slew of Booth's bestsellers, but nothing else. Carved ivory and teak trinkets from their travels, and a large stone of South African amethyst adorned the nightstand. Movements. Sarah stared at the backs of his Berluti shoes. Or is it Berluti? Oh,
I have no idea.
I don't know that stuff. Underneath the bed, and Sarah had been there for some time. Booth said, Lena made her way past the couple and into the laundry room. Booth joined his wife at the window. Gardenias. Yes, they would look nice. I'll speak to the gardener. And now, what about our little game of hide and seek? Sarah headed outside to the garage. Oh, started raining again.
It's boring.
Sarah grabbed her head and sat down at the bar. He has scattered them in the fireplace, the ashtray, and even in the plants. He never intended on you finding me. Even if you would have won the money, what would have that proved? That he cannot control me. Even though you've never killed another person, you've killed your true self. Stand up to him. Claim your gift. Sarah knew Larry's spirit was right. It was time. She walked to the door with the intention of finding Booth and telling him her secret. She placed her hand on the crystal doorknob. It turned me down to talk to you. Booth leaned towards the dresser. You look so serious. Sarah cleared the years of fear from her throat. To me, you thought you could talk to dead people? Sarah's jaw dropped. How did you? My dear, you should know by now that nothing escapes me. I had you thoroughly investigated before I ever asked you out on a date. He paused to light the pipe. Everything is in your file. I know your so-called gift was the reason you were abandoned and never adopted. Tears rolled down Sarah's face. I can't believe you've known all this time. It's not like I believed any of it. Lord, woman, if I'd known bringing the remains of that criminal in this house would conjure up all this nonsense, I never would have. Ashes. He told me there are bits of his remains in the fireplace and plants. Booth's face twisted. Larry told you this? Yes, a ghost told me. You are the boy, he is a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Booth turned and walked out of the room. Sarah started to follow him. Sarah, wait. It would be useless for you to follow him. He's made up his mind to let fear control him. Booth is not afraid of anything. He writes dark tales of horror, for goodness sake. You're wrong, Sarah. He is afraid of you. You're able to do something he cannot understand, and that frightens him. Don't you see? That is why it was not a pleasant thing to witness. I told you smoking would kill you. She stopped and took a final look at her blue-faced husband. Oh, but you were right about one thing, my dear. Larry Wingo is a genius. Breathless, Lena met Sarah in the hallway. Is Mr. Warner all right? Mr. Warner's fine. He's laughing at something I said. Sarah took Lena by the hand. Let's go take a look at where we will plant those gardenias, shall we? I saw that Ruth came in here. We have Tawny, Cheryl, and Maureen.
Hey, guys.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year,
Merry
everyone.
Christmas Eve.
Would you get me a little bit more to drink because I'm starting to get parched in my throat?
Okay. What would you like? IPA?
You can surprise me. All right, well, this one is, ooh. Yeah, let's just say.
Nothing dark?
No, because it has coffee in it, and I'm one of those people on the planet that doesn't drink coffee. Hey, Sandra, how are you? Did you listen to today's episode? It featured a moment in oddity that you suggested. All right, so this is Ghost Farm by Zach Chapman. Outside the manor, rain pelted the rural landscape, turning the fields to marsh and the roads to muck. An impossibly broad figure stood alone, toiling away with a spade, digging shallow, unmarked graves. Ooh, it's Mort. A dozen luxury vehicles seemed out of place, parked neatly next to the gravedigger and slanted manor. Inside the manor, a potential client spoke with a fake British accent. I never drink anything bottled this century. Should I do my fake British accent? I never drink anything bottled this century.
That's so good.
He said, waving his chubby hand, dismissing the complimentary wine. The waiter nodded and continued down the table, pouring the dark wine for any client who wanted. Altogether, there were 13. Most were over 40, all were white. They complained loudly over their empty dinner plates. The steak had been too bloody, far too rare, and there was a sweet stench to the manor like rotten candy. What does rotten candy taste like?
I don't know.
It was almost midnight. When the hour finally struck, a chime filled the dining hall and a tall man wearing a well-tailored suit appeared at the head of the table. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. I trust the meal was rather filling. My name is Irving. I will be your representative and tour guide tonight. You've already read and signed the release, so you'll know that before you can see any of our products, you'll be strip searched for cell phones, electronic devices, and anything that may be used as a recording device. Strip search? That's a hell of a dinner party. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
That's not even a metal detector. That's you're taking it all off. We've got Nikki in here and Jacqueline too. Welcome, welcome. A few clients who had not read the fine print grumbled at that. We have streamlined the process. Your comfort is one of our greatest concerns. That's
Other than the strip search.
Other than the strip search. Though after any purchases, ... he smiled wickedly. At the side of the room, a curtain raised, revealing 2 doors. Strip searches shall be quick. Once this is over, we go downstairs to the sub-villa.
I'm ready to deck them.
I'm out. Thanks for dinner. Thanks for the rare steak. I'm gone. After every client momentarily shed their timeless formal attire behind closed doors, Irving led them down a cracked spiral staircase. The smell of wet stone and many years betrayed the age of the place. It was much older than the slanted manor that was built around it. Centuries old. More than that, timeless and dark. Irving brought the clients to a halt. Well, once you step off this staircase and into the antechamber, you shall be in a very elite, very small group, even if you don't purchase any of our products. Fewer than 1,100 souls have passed through these hallways. He paused for impeccably dramatic effect. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? The group flowed out of the spiral staircase, nearly tripping over themselves in excitement, and crowded the hallway.
So excited.
You ready to buy something?
No.
The sub-villa
have to be strip search.
The sub-villa has been in business for many years. As you should know, our products are world famous, though of course our business does not take credit. Tonight you will see all products we have to offer at the moment, hear some testimonies, and glimpse the casting process. Irving ushered the clients forward through the cramped hallway. Without further ado, let us meet the first product. Okay, that sounds like it's more than just like something that's sitting on a tray.
Yeah, it's a little creepy. A little bit dark.
Oh, Brian says our stream is dropping out every few seconds on YouTube. Well, YouTube sucks.
What's up on her?
Yeah, I don't know why they're having an issue on YouTube.
You just have to join the Spooktacular
Yeah.
on Facebook. I don't know what to do about YouTube.
Black rock walls and sconces and echoes flanked the clients. Irving led the party to a windowed panel. Nothing but shadows on the other side. When he flipped a panel on the side wall, a light on the other side of the panel flickered on. Through warped glass, rows of pews faced them. Sitting on a pew was a bearded man, gray and withered. To his left lay a rope with 3 thick, bloody knots tied at one end. On a second inspection, one could see wet, visible protrusions from under his robe, welts the size of a child's fist. The sub-villa has named him the Apostate. He's been with us for 20 years. He's our most budget-friendly product. How much? A client asked. Irving's thin mustache twitched. Please hold all questions regarding pricing for your after-tour appraising consultation. Now, before we apprehended him, the Apostate was charged with abusing an altar boy. He's been repenting for quite some time now. Still, this product is not advised for households with small children. How are the products chosen? A woman in her early 40s asked. We have a large database where subjects are monitored. There are many determining factors. We ensure that we have a large variety of products at any given time. Mr. Irving, what physical object will the product haunt? That's a good question. In the Apostate's rare case, the client will have the option to choose. Irving pointed through the window. Between that crucifix he wears and that gruesome rope. More details will be revealed on the casting process later this evening. Let us continue on to more of the products. Just as the holding cell became black, another one down the hallway lit up. The woman from earlier touched the glass, running her fingers over the ancient warps. If you could avoid touching the glass, your psychic resonance may disrupt our processes. Also, unwanted products may taint you. The sub-villa does not condone any trauma or psychic phenomena brought on without the purchase of our products. If you witness any, please see one of our certified exorcists for a diagnosis and plan. Let me be clear. Haunts without purchase is theft of service. Well. Inside the next cell stood a mumbling woman. Irving hefted a lever up and down until the glass shook and slowly disappeared into the ceiling as he cranked. At the soft noises of Irving's assertions, the woman looked up. Swollen holes gaped under her eyebrows. Many of the clients gasped. Irving stepped forward into the cell. If you want to touch, now is a good opportunity. Please dip your hands in our psychic disinfectant agent. It's a variant of Vatican holy water brewed with something special. He motioned to a bowl at the side of the cell. This will ensure there is no residual bleeding. You may touch her arms, cheeks, hair, but please don't be too invasive. Upon hearing Irving's voice, the woman wailed but made no motion to move. Her mouth was absent of teeth and tongue. Several clients quickly washed their hands in the disinfectant and began running their hands on her cold skin. A red-headed woman was too terrified to proceed. 2 others also refused to touch the blind woman. Cold feet? Irving did his best to hide a grin. He continued his pitch. This one is modeled after the classic hag, a beautiful Gothic legend. Many accounts of similar past products have stated the entity floats above their beds, howling. Witnesses report a dread so deep it causes paralysis or a terror that causes involuntary screaming. Extreme cases may cause shortness of breath or an inability to scream. In recent years, we've put a warning on these products. Avoid buying if household members suffer from asthma or have any chronic disorders that disrupt normal breathing. The more excited client spoke giddily. Ah, feel how cold she is, Martha. How creepy. Darling, isn't she wonderful? She reminds me of grandmother. Oh, I like her. That moan she makes is terrifying. It looks like she's weeping blood. Her skin is so cold, it feels real. Irving smiled. I assure you, she's real. There are many more products for you to see tonight. Now you've had a chance to touch her. Please rinse your hands in the... Irving motioned the crowd out of the cell as he spoke. As I said before, some products we have are similar to popular ones sold in the past. However, this does not mean each product isn't unique. Every entity is an individual, different from its predecessors. So we're not getting a generic hag? Sir, none of our products are generic. Irving off him. The patient. When he was 14, he murdered his family with a cordless circular saw after tying them to their beds in their sleep, before to keep him in a safe, manageable state. When obtaining this one, he broke a villa employee's neck and vivisected him. We suggest this product whose occupant is intimately familiar with the red. Spit flecked the glass divider, but on the other side, his thunderous voice was little more than a murmur. Mostly they stared at the patient's twitching body, watching as dark liquid filled the cracks in the sharpened spoon, china figurines, a metal rook chess piece, several crucifixes, a scepter, a rusted cordless circular saw, and a globe. Some of the group chatted lightheartedly over which products they planned to buy. A few others grumbled complaints. Their tones edged on bitterness when one client discovered another one of the same haunt. I wonder how that will be determined during our after-tour praising consultation, the disgruntled client spat at the other as their argument escalated. Irving cut the two off. Gentlemen and ladies, mind these items. This is where alternative totems are stored. Touching one during this process can be quite detrimental to your psychic health. The group quieted down and listened to Irving talk around the details of how exactly souls were bound to the totems. To his left hung 5 robes with embroidered runes, dimly glowing. To his right was a vat of dark liquid. Irving explained that the vat contained liquid morphic resonance amplifiers, and that the robes helped the caster, sometimes he himself, channel the soul into the correct medium, the chosen totem, by matching certain vibrational frequencies. As Irving neared the end of his explanation, an elderly client reached for a golden locket dangling off a splintered shelf. As his fingers wrapped around it, the lights flickered. Irving's eyes darted to the man's grasp on the totem. Like a bullwhip, Irving snatched the totem out of the client's fingers. He chanted loudly as the whole room began to rumble. Totems rattled on their racks. A few fell to the floor. Smoke boiled from the tight fist Irving had made around the locket. A client shrieked. Irving dipped his hand in the vat, pulled it out, and slammed it down on the closest surface available. Flexing his fist several times, he sighed and wrapped his handkerchief around his trembling hand. That was dangerous. Everyone in here was at risk. He shook his head. Tonight has been quite adventurous. Very well, I believe this is to be the climax of our evening. The tour is adjourned. He led them out of the totem incubation room. Now, there are 2 paths to choose from. Path 1, you're ready to make your purchases and be counseled through your appraising consultation. He peered around, making eye contact with each individual potential client. Path 2, maybe the thought of owning a ghost no longer seems as glamorous as you had once thought. Maybe you just took the tour and never had any intention of buying. Maybe the tour has disgusted you, or maybe you just aren't ready for the purchase. He continued as a mammoth-sized man stepped out of the shadows. Option 1, form a line and follow. Brute out of the antechamber. Pardon his saturated state. He'd been digging graves to accommodate the new sales. So apparently Brute is basically Mort. Option 2, please follow me. I'll lead you to the exit. 4 clients led by the red-headed woman fell in behind Irving. Irving cocked an eyebrow at her. Are you certain? No product struck your fancy? Very certain, she said, determination in her voice. Right then, no swaying you. He marched the 4 down the gloomy corridor until they reached a 1930s-style elevator. He motioned the clients ahead of him through the folding lattice doors and said, Ladies and gentlemen, careful on your step. This old elevator bounces and sways. He helped each into the elevator and took a step back into the hallway as the lattice doors slammed shut. Steel cables cried under the weight of the occupants. What's the meaning of this? The redhead demanded. Are you going to show us out or not? How are we to get to our cars? A brute will have to deal with your cars, I'm afraid. One of you asked earlier how we obtain our products. Now you'll see firsthand. He cranked a lever to the side of the elevator. Instead of going up, the elevator shook, then descended slowly. Shouts filled the chamber. Yes, Irving thought, what great specimens. One day they'll make great haunts. You can't do this. Stop this elevator right now. Irving turned, walking back toward where the real money was, and whistled a tune. The shout stalked him as he strolled, so he whistled harder. Now he thought, time to make some sales.
Good grief.
Man.
And Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
I tell you.
I know that Christmas Eve usually revolved around ghost stories, but oh my word. That was a bit much.
Metal's here. Hello, Metal. Has this gotten any better on YouTube, or is it still going in and out?
I had it up and it cut out.
Did it?
Yep.
Well, I don't know why it's having an issue. I don't know if it's the weather or what have you. What is Sandra saying? I don't blame the redhead. I don't particularly want to run my hands down anyone I don't know. Well, apparently that redhead is taking a trip down to hell. Teresa Rowland. Okay. Those were the two I picked. I need to find another story. Do any of these look interesting to you? We have
the monkey. Oh, we've done the monkey's paw.
We have done the monkey's paw before. Let's see. Is that all the alternate? Ooh, that one's pretty long, said Carolyn quickly. She turned on her sister with a strange, sharp look of suspicion. Then she shrank as if from the other's possible answer. Rebecca gasped again. And she asked. They were talking very loud, replied Rebecca evasively. Mrs. Brigham looked at her. She had not resumed rocking. She still sat up straight, with a slight knitting of intensity on her fair forehead. Hush, said Carolyn, with a glance of actual fear at the closed door. Nobody can hear with the door shut. He must have heard it shut, and, well, I can say what I want to before he comes down, and I'm not afraid of him. I don't know who's afraid of him. What reason is there for anybody to be afraid of Henry? Demanded Carolyn. Mrs. Brigham trembled before her sister's look. Rebecca gasped again. There isn't any reason. A machine. She did, but she's come down again. Well, she can't hear. I say again, I think Henry ought to be ashamed of himself. I shouldn't think he'd ever get over it, having words with poor Edward, the very immovability of, what did you call it? Gastric. You didn't sleep, as of some live front chamber which she occupied. Carolyn was there. She went close to her and took her hands, and the two sisters looked at each other. Don't speak, don't. I can't see to sew another stitch. Rebecca rose and left the room. Presently she entered with a lamp. She stood stiffly, pointing at the shadow. Then, after a shuddering glance at the wall, Rebecca burst out in a wild wail. Oh, said. It's been there every night since he died, cried Rebecca. Suddenly, and Henry Glynn entered. He began to speak. Then his eyes followed the direction of the others. He stood staring at the shadow on the wall. Incredulity. I can't say it.
Oh my word. Incredulity.
Suddenly he began hastening hither and thither about the room. He moved the furniture with fierce jerks, turning ever to see the effect upon the shadow on the wall. Not a line of its terrible outlines wavered. It must be something in the room, he declared in a voice which seemed to snap like a laugh. What an absurdity, he said easily. Such a to-do about a shadow. That's so, assented Mrs. Brigham in a suit, inquiring us on this wonderful eve and into Christmas tomorrow.
Merry Christmas, guys. Have a Merry Christmas. Very blessed New Year.
Keep it spooky. I didn't know they had it so you can delete your videos. I'm so tired.